Hey everyone, welcome to part 59 of my Pokemon game series in Unity. So in this video, we'll focus on fixing few bugs that we currently have, and I'll also show you my entire process of diagnosing and fixing issues that are hard to find. So you'll learn things like how to read the stack trace of an error and use it with debugging to find the cause of that error. Special thanks to all my Patreons for making this series possible. By becoming a Patreon, you can support me and get access to the complete project files of the series. The project files also contain some advanced features that are not covered on YouTube. So let's start the video. So in the previous video, we introduced different category of items, right? And for each category, we have a separate list of slots. So now, whenever we want to use the slots, we should use the slots of the currently selected category, right? So we have a function to get the slots by category, and we are using it when we want to get the slots. Okay, but there are still few places where we are using the slots list directly. So if you look at the use item function here we are using the slots directly without considering the category, and even in the remove item function we are using the slots directly. So I forgot to change this in the previous video, so let's change this now. So instead of using the slots like this, we have to get the slots of the currently selected category. So first let me take a parameter here for the selected category. All right, and then we can call get slots by category to get the slots of that category. Okay, so let me store the result in a variable called current slots, and here I'll use the current slots instead. All right, so let me also do that from the remove item function. So first I'll add a parameter for the category, and then I'll get the current slots. Okay, so here we have to use category, and finally I'll use the current slots instead of using the slots directly. Okay, let me just fix the typo here. All right, so now we'll have errors since we changed the parameters of the function. So let's fix those. So when calling remove item, we have to pass the selected category, and we have to do the same even when calling the use item. So let me look at where the use item is called, and here I'll also pass the selected category. So now when we use an item, the category will also be considered and the correct item will be used. So next, let me fix a typo that I made in one of the previous videos. So when implementing recovery item for the status healing items, here I'm checking if Pokemon status equal to null or volatile status is not equal to null. Okay, so this was a mistake and it should be equal to null. So next, let's look at another issue that we have. So if you run the game and if you look at the console, you can see that we have few errors over here. So if you select one of the errors, you can see more details on it. And from here, you can see which line is causing this error. So here we have multiple lines, but the line that is causing the error will be the line at the top. Okay, so this is the line that's causing the error. So let's click on this to go to that line. So yeah, this is the line that is causing the error. By the way, some of you might not have this issue, but even if you don't have it, I want you to follow along and do the fix so that you won't get this issue in the future. So the fix for this issue is actually very simple, but I want to show you how to diagnose the cause of the issue so that you'll know how to fix issues like this by yourself in the future. So let me show you how you can debug and fix such issues. So the first step here is to understand what's causing the issue. So we know this line is causing the issue, and this is the line to set the HP in the HP bar, right? But why is it throwing an error? So to understand that, first let's read the error message properly. So let's look at the error. Just select one of them, and let me just make this a bit big. All right. So the error message says that we are trying to assign an invalid value to the local scale. Okay. And from here, we can see that we are trying to assign a name to the X of the local scale. So let's try debugging in Visual Studio to confirm this issue. So I'll go to this line over here and I'll add a breakpoint and attach this to Unity so that we can debug. By the way, if you're not familiar with debugging in Visual Studio, I've covered it in part 13. So let's run the game and debug this. All right. So the execution paused at our breakpoint. And from here, if we check the value of the HP normalized variable, you can see that it is NaN. NaN stands for not a number. So now it's clear that this is what's causing the issue. For some reason, we are passing NaN to the HP normalized parameter. So the next step is to understand from where we are calling the setHP function and why are we passing NaN for the HP normalized parameter. Alright, so let me just stop the debugging. And let's find from where we are calling the setHP function. Okay, so if we look at the references of this function, we can see that we are calling it from two places, from the battle hut and from the party member UI. So since we have two of them, we have to find out from which of these two places are we calling it when the error occurred. Okay, so how can we find that? We can find that from the stack trace of the error. So if you select one of the errors over here, you can see it's stack trace. This over here is stack trace. And from here, we know that the top line gives us the line that's causing the error. But if you look at the second line, it'll give us the line that is calling the setHP function. Okay, so from the second line, we can understand that the setHP function is called from party member UI dot update data function. Okay, and if you want, you can also look at the third line, and this tells us from where the update data function was called. Okay, so if you come to the bottom, here you can see that all of this was basically called from party stream dot init, right? So we know that the error is happening when we try to initialize the party stream. And the party stream dot init is actually called from game controller dot start. So this is how you read stack trace. It's really useful to understand what is actually causing the error. So let's get back to debugging. So we are interested in the function that is calling the setHP function, right? So let's go to the line that's calling it. So it's inside the update data function in party member UI. So once again, if you look at the references of setHP function, one of them is the update data in party member UI. So yeah, that's a good thing to remember whenever you are checking for an issue and you have multiple references, then you can go ahead and check the stack trace to understand which one of these is calling it when the error was thrown. Okay, so in our case, it was the update data function. All right, so here we are passing Pokemon HP divided by Pokemon's max HP for the normalized HP parameter of the set HP function. So let's actually add a breakpoint over here and find out what's actually causing the issue. All right, so let me attach it to Unity and play the game. So the execution stopped over here, and if you look at the HP and max HP of the Pokemon, it is actually 0. So this is what's causing the issue. If you try to divide 0 by 0, you'll get NaN, right? You can't divide anything by 0. That is like the one thing that is not mathematically possible. So that's what's causing the issue. But why is the max HP and HP 0? So let's go to the Pokemon class and check. Let me just stop the debugging and I'll go to the Pokemon class and check why the HP and max HP is 0. So in the Pokemon class, we have this init function, and this is where we are initializing things like HP and max HP, right? The HP is initialized from here, and the max HP is actually initialized from this function, which is called from the init itself. All right. So if this was called before the Pokemon was initialized, then the HP and max HP will be 0. Okay. So let's check from where we are initializing the Pokemons. So we have 3 different references here, but for the party screen, we are using the Pokemons in the player party, right? So we can look at the reference inside the Pokemon party script. So here we are calling the init from the start function of the Pokemon party. So there is actually a chance that we might try to initialize the party screen before we initialize the Pokemon. Okay, so if you look at the stack trace, you can see that we are initializing the party screen from the start of the game controller, right? So the party screen is initialized from the start, and even the Pokemon in the party is also initialized in start, right? So since both of this is initialized from start, the party screen.init might run before Pokemon.init, but we don't want that. We want the Pokemon to be initialized first, right? So normally Unity will execute the start function in some random orders. So in your project, it might execute the start in the game controller first, and in my project, it might execute the start of the Pokemon party first. So how can we make sure that this is executed first before executing this? So one way is to change the script execution order in Unity. We can tell Unity to execute the Pokemon party script first before executing the game controller. But that's a very bad approach. It might cause more issues in the future. So the best way to make sure that Pokemon.init will execute before partyscreen.init is to put Pokemon.init in awake. Okay, so we know that awake will always be executed before start, and if we put this inside awake, we can guarantee that this will be executed before partyscreen.init. Alright, so let's put this inside awake. Okay, so this should solve the problem for us. So let's go to Unity and test this now and see if that error occurs again. Awesome, we don't have that error anymore. So that means the Pokemon is initialized before the party string. So the fix for this issue was pretty simple. All we have to do was move this piece of code into the awake function. So yeah, it was a pretty simple fix. But the problem is, if you don't know how to debug this type of issues, you can be stuck with it for days without knowing how to fix it. So that's the reason why I showed my whole process of how I diagnosed and fixed this issue. So next, let's look at another issue that we have. So first, let me show you the issue. All right, so if you open the bag and if you use the last item in the list, and if the last item only has a single count, then it'll be removed from the list, right? When the count becomes 0, it'll be removed from the list. So let's use this and see what happens. So we used it, and now there is no selection in the list. But from the left side, you can see that the currently selected item is Max Revive, right? This is the icon and description of Max Revive. So we know that Max Revive is selected, but the selection is not shown in the list. So if I press the up arrow key, the selection reappears, and now we can select as usual. So this is the issue. When we use the last item, the selection just disappears. So let's look at how we can fix that. So in the inventory UI, inside the update item selection function, we are clamping the selected item from here so that if an item was just used and removed from the list, we won't get a null reference exception. So that issue was fixed in one of the previous videos. But now the problem is the selected item is getting clamped and its icon and description is shown correctly, but the selection just disappears, right? So the issue here is we are clamping the selected item after running the code for selection. Okay, so that's the reason why the selection disappears. So we can easily fix this by moving this line of code above the code for selection. All right. So now the selected item will be clamped before we run the for loop for selection. So let's go to Unity and test if this issue is fixed. All right. So I'll use the last item like before. And now you can see that the selection doesn't disappear. So that issue is fixed. So next, let's look at another issue that we have. So let me just start a battle to show you the issue. All right. So right now, we are updating the HP of the Pokemon in the HUD using the observer pattern, right? So when the HP of the Pokemon changes, we will fire an event that will notify the HUD to change the HP in the HP bar. But the issue is we are not unsubscribing to the event when the battle ends. So let me show you the issue. All right, so let me end the battle real quick. And the problem is after the battle, the HUD will be still subscribed to the HP change event of the last Pokemon in the battle. So now from here, if I use a potion on my Charmander, you can see that we get this error in the console. So it says that the coroutine couldn't be started because the game object player HUD is inactive. So let's click on this error and look at the line that's causing it. So it's caused when we try to run the update HP async coroutine. Okay. So if you look at the references of the update HP, it is called when the Pokemon's on HP changed event is fired, right? So we need to make sure to unsubscribe to this event when the battle ends. Right now we are unsubscribing to it when we switch Pokemons. So when the set data is called again, we are unsubscribing it, but we should also do the same when the battle ends. Okay, so for that, I'll create a new function called clear data. Okay, and in this function, I'll put the code to unsubscribe to any events that we are currently subscribed to. Okay, and then we can simply call this function when the battle ends. So I'll go to my battle system script and I'll search for battle over function. Okay, so this is called when the battle ends. And in this function, we can call player unit dot HUD dot clear data. And we can also do the same for the enemy unit. So let's go to Unity and test if the issue is fixed. All right, let me start a battle real quick and let me beat this Bulbasaur. Okay, so now if we use a potion on Charmander, we don't have that error anymore in the console. So that means we are unsubscribing from the events successfully. All right, so we fixed lots of issues in this video and we looked at how we can diagnose and fix issues that are hard to find. So I'll stop the video here, and in the next video, we'll look at how we can use Pokeballs from the inventory. Alright, so before you leave, make sure to leave a like on the video and consider subscribing to my channel. That'll really help me out. So I'll see you in the next video.